Hello everyone, good evening or good day depending where you are, and hello to you too, Mr.
Good morning,
Jones.
Marty Mulu. How are you, sir?
Good, very good, thank you. We hope you're all well as well. Today we have a very, very nice lesson. We're going to look at the whole of creation actually, and our historical development here, and how it was actually first initiated in the spiritual worlds. And I do believe today, and I think you've got one more lesson which is going to be questions and answers. So it's really worthwhile keeping that in mind. Today's lesson, what we can do, I think this is going to be from experience a very nice lesson because it's an interesting topic. Second of all though, it's also a small topic, so that means that we might be going through it a little faster than usual. Well, not faster than usual, but a bit, that we'll have some more slack time. That is, we'll be covering everything that we're supposed to cover, but we might have some extra time. So if you have any questions, we'll get to those at the end of the lesson. And anything related to this topic, though, you can obviously ask through the chat box, and Mr. Jones will take care of that.
Please.
And then we'll answer those as well. Mm-hmm. So let's get smashing, shall we? Now, the whole of creation, the whole of reality, as you know, starts with the thought of creation. You would have learned in your previous lessons the 4 phases of direct light and how that impacted the first created being actually a desire to receive. Okay, so our nature is a desire to receive, and the Creator wanted to create that and wants to bring that to an end solution. And in your previous lessons, we would have learned that as being the state A, state B, and state C, or 1, 2, 3 stages of development, right? 1, 2, 3. And on top of that, this lesson is going to cover, well, what we've been through in this world, okay, through our historical development. And what we're going to do is going to take a look at that. If you like, though, what I'll do is do a little reminder, okay, like a 5-minute reminder about the initial concepts of what I've just spoke about, so you have a little reminder, and then we'll take it from there and see how things are happening in this world. Right, first of all, the Creator created a desire to receive, and he created that in 4 phases, right? First of all, as you know, we have the Creator.
Wait, when did he do this? When was this? What year was this?
This is, first of all, we're not in any year yet. This is the spiritual world.
This is, okay, so it's not, there's no time, right?
There's no time at the moment. There's no time in spirituality. Okay? So this is like when the Creator first sat down and thought to himself, oh, you know what? I'll create a desire to receive because I want to bestow. Okay, so that's the kind of thing. It's like we're having a sit down and thinking about what to do today. So there's the Creator, and he has a desire, and he has a thought of creating a created being, the desire to receive, and wants to fulfill it. So he does. He fills it with pleasure and abundance and all that he wants to give it. And then this desire to receive, once it's completely filled with everything, okay, up to its bottom lip, it's just full of light and joy, understands that somebody is actually filling it. It's like a baby being fed by his or her mother, and understands that I've got mum, okay, because somebody is feeding me. So the baby, just like a baby, has that understanding. So there's the desire to receive, and the desire to receive now wants to reciprocate that action of giving, of fulfilling the other. So he comes up with the idea that, oh, I want to bestow as well. And then thinks to himself, well, wait a minute, I don't have anything, okay? So what can I give if I'm a desire to receive only? I don't have anything. So accordingly, he comes up with an idea. He says, wait a minute, the Creator wants to bestow, and he wants to bestow to me, and I want to receive anyway, but I also want to bestow, so why don't I receive to make him happy? Okay, and that would be receiving in order to bestow. So he comes up with a little bright idea like that and decides to do it. So he receives in order to make the Creator happy. And then comes the last phase, which is the real creation, and that is, well, after receiving everything and after also receiving all the pleasures of bestowal, the desire to receive thinks to itself, wait a minute, this is so much fun. I'm getting so much pleasure out of it. I want to get everything from bestowal and reception. Okay? And that is actually the real desire to receive. Wants to receive everything. And I mean everything. So, okay, it's like our world, right? We want to receive everything, and that's exactly what this desire to receive is. Wants to get everything. Pleasure from taking, pleasure from giving, and this is the desire to receive. So this is what the Creator created, and this is the root phase. This is phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So once the desire to receive was created in its perfection, what happened is, let's go to the next kind of phase. The desire to receive now is in perfection, completely filled with light, okay, and having the time of its life, as they say. However, in this state of being fulfilled with light and everything, it doesn't really have the consciousness of its development. It's like an end result, okay? And in that end result, it feels good. So in order to get it developing, in order to kind of make it understand what really bestowal is, making it understand what really giving is, what really love is, it has to go through a heartbreak. In our life as well, it's like that, right? Because all of us want love in life, don't we? However, we have to go through a few heartbreaks in life. And it's actually good that we do, because if we don't really understand what to do with love, okay? So in order for us to also create love in this world, have a loving relationship, understand what really love is, we have to kind of go through this shattering, disappointments, I don't know, you guys name it, right? I think we've all been there. Haven't we, Mr. Jones?
We've been there, Mulu, and you know, it was a good lesson learned.
Okay, good. So as long as we're learning, it's great, because once we learn stuff, we tend not to make the same mistake twice. Because being a desire to receive, we're very, very sensitive to getting hurt. So what the Creator has to do to us is kind of take us through this process of development. And what He does is actually He creates a certain cause of, or a chain of causes, let's say, that kind of make us develop what's called the prototype, okay, which is called the spiritual worlds. And so He develops the spiritual worlds, and He kind of does all that development beyond our consciousness, and He then in that level, in the spiritual worlds, what He does is He creates worlds which are actually called Adam Kadmon, Atzilut, Bria, Yitzira, and Asya, which you guys should have learned in your previous lessons. He creates these worlds, and these worlds are actually us and the relationship that we have with the Creator. So He's actually given us some kind of sensations of what it means to really have a relationship with the Creator, which is a relationship between giving and taking, actually, because those are the only two things that really exist in nature, the plus and the minus, the giving and the taking. And through that giving and taking is how we actually build everything in life, okay, from getting pleasure by taking and getting pleasure from giving, and all that connection between us is always based on giving and taking. Life is give and take, right? We have a proverb like that as well. So what happened is the Creator actually taught us all that give and take in the spiritual worlds, and through our development in that level, He then wants to take us now through a conscious development, because He kind of grew us up in the spiritual worlds to come to a certain understanding, and now what He wants us to do is, well, grow up a bit yourselves, okay? It's the same kind of expectation we have from our children, don't we? We grow them up to a certain age, and then we say, listen, you have to start walking on your own two legs, and you have to start taking care of yourself in this world. And that's what the Creator did. just like what we do to our kids. So there's nothing strange or weird here. And the whole of that development is until all those worlds are developed, and at the end of that world, Asya is a charming little place. Well, I don't know how charming it is at the moment, but it's called our world. All right? So at the end of that world is our world. Isn't that exciting?
Now that's not a place necessarily, that's just our perception. That's what we call our perception, correct? That's not like a place I can go travel to as our world or some other world.
Why? Can't you travel to the US? You're from Texas.
I can travel there when I want to, but it's not as pleasant as you're describing
or
here.
Is that in your perception of reality?
I have a pretty strange perception of reality.
Okay, great. Okay, that's good. Yes and no.
Oh, tell me more. Tell
because
me more.
at the end of the day, from perception of reality, we understood that everything we actually live inside of us. Okay, so all our senses are basically gathering information to give us certain sensations that build the image of this world in a screen at the back of our heads. And we think that everything outside of us really is outside of us, when in fact Kabbalists are saying, listen, outside there's actually nothing. Okay, and we will hopefully come to perceive reality just like that everything is inside of us. This is why it's called spirituality. It's called inner work. It's called the inner worlds of a person. So in our world, for the moment, okay, we perceive things to be on the outside, and through that perception, let's see how that develops. Okay, so now we are in a place called our world, and our world started developing, as scientists say, about 15 billion years ago, with a thing called a Big Bang. Okay, and that Big Bang basically started the whole of creation. Just like we have a dot in the heart, a spark, okay? What we have in this world as a start is a Big Bang about 15 billion years ago. And let's see, I'm going to have to draw this. Let's draw it a little up here, okay? You'll have to excuse me with my drawings, especially in this studio, because the tablet we're drawing on here is not like the other one where you can draw straight lines and things like that. Okay, so first of all we have 15 billion years. 15 billion years. Okay, so what that is basically the Big Bang and the start of the still level of development. Okay, so the still level started developing 15 billion years ago, and in fact, Baal HaSulam has a nice introduction to that in Talmud at Ser Sefirot, and he talks about how from the Big Bang the whole creation started, and how the planets started heating up, cooling, heating up and cooling. So between these two forces, everything kind of developed, including our planet as well. So he wrote about these things like ages ago, like 60, 70, 80 years ago, before all these Big Bang theories and things were even developed by scientists. Not to mention, Ari has a very nice poem about it. In fact, it should be at the beginning of this book, if you have this book, where he actually writes about that as well. Let's see if they really have it here. I know we have it in the Turkish book, but maybe... Oh yes, here it is, The Tree of Life, a poem. Okay, so on page 7 of Kabbalah for the Student, of this... Oh my goodness, there we go. All right, Kabbalah for the Student. On this... in this book, on page 7, you can read that poem. And Ari, he was living in the 15th or the 16th century, and from 1534 to 77, something like that, yeah. And he had a very short lifespan. He died, 37, 38 years old, but he was a huge Kabbalist. And he, in that little poem, describes how the Creator started developing everything from just nothing. So Kabbalists have kind of attained this throughout the centuries, also the writers of the Zohar. In fact, all the Kabbalists have attained that, even from Adam onwards, how the Creator just created everything. And this is how we get to learn how everything was created, because some person actually attained how the Creator did it. So hopefully we'll come to that as well, and then we can write lovely poems as well if you're into poetry. Now, in the 15 billion years ago, after the Big Bang, the whole of creation, the still level, started developing. After the still level finished and completed everything that it had to complete in its development, the vegetative started. After the vegetative finished all its phases of development, the animate started, and after the animate finished all its development, the human started development. Now, when we're talking about human, for the moment, let's talk about us walking on two legs, okay? Not spiritual or anything like that, just, you know, what we call a regular guy, human on the street. He started appearing after that, and that was like roughly 3 to 4 billion years ago, apparently. Okay, so about 3 to 4 billion years ago, we started coming down from trees, okay, because we used to be like, you know, monkeys and apes, okay? You've all read about evolution. Evolution does exist in Kabbalah, okay? Evolution is actually the whole teaching of Kabbalah, and actually evolution is also us evolving every day internally as well. The whole of life is an evolution. So it's not a theory, okay? Not quite as what Darwin stated, but it is existing. So also in every degree between the still and the vegetative, there's also a link, a chain link that connects them in between. For example, from still to the vegetative, there's a level called corals, okay? And from the vegetative to the animate, there's a creature called the dog of the field. From his belly, he's connected to the ground, okay, but he has movement. And then the animate level starts, and from animate to the development of human, the degree between them is the monkey. So when monkeys started coming down from trees, started walking on two legs, and started roaming around this planet, that was like 3-4 billion years ago. And then what do we have? After that, we have the first apes around 8 million years ago. 8 million years ago. And then what do we have? 150,000 years ago, we have the Homo sapiens. Okay. Now we're getting a bit closer. 150,000 years ago, Homo sapiens. We're getting closer to our ancestors. Okay? That's how it is. Right, yeah. Homo sapiens. And then, afterwards, we have 40,000 years ago, we have the first beliefs. Okay? It's like animism, totemism. So the first beliefs started coming out around 40,000 years ago. And then we have a very special guy in our history, and he's called Adam. Okay, and he came around, what, 5,777 we're in? What year are we in today?
Precisely. We're in 2016 now.
No, but according to the Jewish calendar, it's 77, 76.
77? I can't remember one of those.
Can you just check that so we don't make a mistake? So today, as at today, we have this guy called Adam. Okay, let me draw another line. So I'm kind of continuing the line, okay? Oops, so down this way. And about 5,777 years ago, there was a guy called Adam. Now, Adam is known as the first man, right? But I just said 150,000 years ago, we had the first Homo sapiens. So how does that figure out? Well, Adam, being the first man, is not first man on his two legs, obviously. Okay? He's
76, by the way.
76.
5776.
Thank you for that. Okay, we're coming up to 77 next month, yeah. So it's 5,776. Next month it'll be 5,777, okay, because we have Rosh Hashanah, the new year. Now, 5,776 years ago, there was a guy called Adam who was born. And actually, the beginning of the year in Kabbalah starts with the birth of Adam. So we're kind of like celebrating his birthday, which will be next month. So 5,776 years ago, a guy called Adam was born. Now, when we're talking about when Adam was born, obviously, well, not obvious, it may not be obvious, but we're not actually talking about him being born in this world as a physical body. Adam was the first Kabbalist to actually discover the spiritual worlds. He was the first guy to find out that there was a force running the whole of reality. That day, when he discovered the Creator, that force actually, okay, so nobody's coming down from the skies in a blinding light and saying, yo, I'm the Creator, and Creator is not some guy up there, up in the clouds looking over us. He's a force, he's this governing entity that we call the total forces of nature. So the Creator is influencing everything, including Adam as well. Why? Because we are also part of this creation. So he's also influencing us. And Adam came to such a development that he was wondering about the meaning of life. He's saying, well, why are we living? Okay, I'm stuck here, I'm looking at the world, people come, people go, we're all, a few years here, and you can imagine in those days, life wasn't that easy. So he's thinking, well, what the heck? So he, through this wondering, questioning about life, instead of living just like an animal without questioning, he discovered the Creator from the purity of his question, like, why are we living? It was like a very nice, pure question. So the Creator thought, that's lovely, because this is the moment that we've been waiting for the development of the degree of man inside this animal, this body. Okay? So Adam discovered the Creator, and the day he discovered it was his birth in spirituality, and that is his birthday, not his birthday as in when he comes out to this world from his mother's womb. So 5,776 years ago, he discovered spirituality, and he was the first Kabbalist, and he wrote a short little, passage about it too. We can say, actually, we have that on our site as well. It's an angel called Aziel, his writings about spirituality. So after that, after Adam, what happens is Abraham comes along, and that's about 3,800 years ago. And Abraham, let's call him Abe for short, Abraham was in Babylon. And he is also, and from Adam to Abraham, don't think that there was nobody. In every generation, there has always been a Kabbalist. Okay? So since Adam, the world has not had a period without a Kabbalist. And the reason we jump onto Abraham is not that we, forget about the guys in between, like Noah, Seth, and so forth. However, Abe was very special, Abraham. He was very special because he lived in a time which is called the time of Babylon. Now, in Babylon, humans kind of started going nuts. They started, believing in all kinds of things. They started building towers and stuff. This is after the flood and everything, right? So they had this huge development of ego. The society was growing. There was more interaction between people. People weren't living, so far off from each other. There were a lot of wars going in between them, amongst them, and so on. So Babylon was, on the one hand, it was a very, time of development for humanity. On the other hand, it was a big mess. Okay, kind of like us in this 21st century, really developing, but it's a big mess. So that was how it was in Babylon. And Abraham thought, well, wait a minute, everything was honky-dory, and all of a sudden now we've got this big mess. Okay, like people are going crazy, nobody can get along with each other. the amount of wars that are happening, everybody's like in chaos. So Abraham started also wondering what was going on. And Abraham, even before, was a very spiritual person. He was actually one of the spiritual leaders in society. So he was already kind of like an educated person in society, and he could be being involved with society and inside of humanity. He could begin to see from the side that there was a shift, that there was a change in attitudes of people, that there was something going on. And then through his also research, because Kabbalah is the research of what? Of the laws of nature. Okay? How the Creator is influencing us and acting on us and making changes so that we could actually take a look from the side and say, ooh, something's going on here and I wonder what it is. And that's exactly how Abraham got into spirituality. It's kind of like us as well. We're looking at our lives from the side and thinking, well, wait a minute, what am I living for? What is the state of this world? Oh my goodness, all right? So that's exactly how Abraham was thinking about 3,800 years ago. And he also, through this research, through this discovery, wanting to find out why we're going through all this suffering, he also discovered spirituality. Actually, discovering spirituality is through this desire to discover spirituality. Why? Because the Creator wants us to discover Him. So how are we going to discover Him? By actually wanting to discover Him. So all of these Kabbalists had this huge desire to discover the meaning of life, and that's why it revealed to them. So what are we doing when we're studying Kabbalah? Building a desire to reveal. Okay? And this is what these guys did. They built a desire to see and reveal the truth. So 3,800 years ago, Abraham also discovered this truth, that there was one force acting upon the whole of reality. He called this one force the Creator. And then he said to himself, well, wait a minute, there's a process we have to go through, and there's a development that we need to reach. And in order to reach that development, we have to start working, we have to do this work, all right? So we can get to what the Creator wants to give to us, which is an amazing abundance of, well, pleasure, understanding, consciousness. Like He wants to take us up to the pinnacle of human development. And once He understood that that's where we were going, and the whole of the process that humanity is going through was just to get us to that level, He said, wait a minute, well, let's get some guys and start studying about it. So He did. He started going around and telling people in Babylon, saying, listen guys, it was like, I've got this great new revelation. Okay, it sounds familiar with some people, huh? Especially in Texas.
In Texas, they're all idol worshippers down.
They're all, okay, somebody's always talking about something being revealed around there. That's what I see in movies anyway.
Yeah, anyway. That's all, believe the movies, that's what you should believe.
Okay. Abraham was also there. So he told people that, guys, there is a reason, a purpose for life. And he started teaching them what he discovered. And then he got a group of people who wanted to study this, and they called themselves a group called the House of Abraham. And Abraham actually wanted to teach everyone in Babylon, but not everyone was interested, just like not everybody's interested in Kabbalah, right? You know, only a few people are interested in Kabbalah, because not a lot of people actually, even now in our days, are asking about the meaning of life. They're asking, why am I suffering? Which is actually a preliminary state to what is the meaning of life. However, they're not really going into this, you know, nitty-gritty. So, Abraham grabs a few guys around him who want to study and who want to learn and discover the Creator, and they say to themselves, you know what, we have to build ourselves an environment. This Babylon is a nightmare. Everybody's killing everybody, everybody's stealing, raping, and we don't need to be in this mess. So what they do is they leave Babylon. So this group of people called the House of Abraham starts leaving Babylon, and they started taking off to another place. So you guys probably know the story. Abraham has a little chat with the Creator, and Creator says, you know what, this is really a bad environment for you. Why don't we just go somewhere a little bit more peaceful and quiet, all right? So Abraham goes, okay, great, where to? I've got a little piece of land on the other side of Babylon. Why don't we just take a trip down there? So that's what they do. They kind of cross the desert and everything and come to this place called the land of Canaan, okay, which is afterwards known as the land of Israel. So what happens then is they go through this process of development. And then after Abraham, about 3,300 years ago, okay, they're all around the land of Canaan now, which is, you know, the land of Israel, that area, right? Jordan, Israel, that location there, 3,300 years ago. Moses comes along, and by this time they're all in Egypt, which is another story and another mess of its own, but people have to go through a breaking in order to discover love. All right, so this was the same thing with Moses. So Moses, 3,300 years ago, is a guy in Egypt who's also wondering, oh my God, I'm living in the palace of the Pharaoh. I have everything I want in life. I am a prince. I practically rule the country. My dad, the Pharaoh, loves me, and my granddad, and I'm having the time of my life. However, I just feel really empty inside. What's going on? Okay, so he's also coming from a side of suffering, but a different kind of suffering. This is called qualitative suffering. Okay, it's kind of like us. In life, we pretty much have everything, right? We don't lack a lot of stuff. We have food, we probably have a home we live in. You know, we're not starving to death like many other people. And Moses was kind of like, you know, right at the, I don't know, he was like the pinnacle of human society, living in a palace, had everything, really, really rich guys, okay? So he had a really nice chariot. Think of it like somebody with a nice, I don't know, car. And he had boats and everything, cruising on the Nile, you know, just a good life, okay? So from that feeling of emptiness, that I have everything, but I feel like I have nothing, which is actually true, because if we have everything, we don't have a desire for anything. And if we don't have a desire for anything, we can't feel pleasure in life. Okay, that's a little trick in life. So in order to feel that we're living, that we get pleasure from life, we have to have a desire. But if you're rich and you have everything, you don't have a desire for anything. So you end up being depressed, okay? And that's what Moses was. We could say that Moses was the first guy to go through manic depression, okay? Being rich and going through manic depression, okay? It's a good thing they didn't have drugs then, or did they?
They probably had their own little...
He would have been on it, okay? So he went through that development, and then he also wanted to discover, and then he did discover the meaning of life, and then he took the people of Israel out of Egypt. Now, the people of Israel are the same group of guys who, through Moses and through Isaac, Jacob, and Jacob's son Joseph, went into Egypt, okay, because they had a bit of a food problem in the land of Canaan. So they went down into Egypt, and they kind of grew there as a society. And Moses kind of mingled with them, being one of them initially, which he didn't know about, but he kind of mixed with them and mingled with them. And then through the discovery of spirituality, he understood that we need to get out of this egoism. So he also gathered people around him who wanted to get out of this egoism. In Egypt, they had a good life, but they didn't feel happy about life. So they were all depressed, didn't have a very, you know, nice outlook to life, although they had everything they could want, but they wanted something beyond this life. So Moses took them out of Egypt, and then what happened was, around 2,000 years ago afterwards, they went through this process, and about 2,000 years ago, religions started, okay, because Moses took them out of Egypt, brought them to the land of Israel according to the history and story, right? But this story is a spiritual story. Okay, he brought those guys out as a group, out of their egoism, into a place called the land of Israel, which was a desire, actually. Land of Israel is a desire. We're not talking about geography, obviously, okay, although there is a country called Israel. And what those people did was they all attained a very high level of spirituality amongst themselves. With that, they also understood that they had to lose this spirituality. So they really attained the pinnacle of spirituality. They really got to know the purpose of life. They got to know the Creator. They understood the Creator. They understood what the Creator wanted to do. And after that understanding, they started to lose spirituality, which is called the falling, okay, or also known as the ruin of the temples. Okay, when we're talking about the ruin of the temples, obviously we're not talking about building demolishing. Okay, it's not the demolishing of a building, it's the demolishing of spirituality inside a person. The temple in our hearts started to break. But these guys knew this was going to happen. Okay, that was the beautiful thing about it. They understood that in humanity, there are a group of people who attained this level of spirituality. And then understanding that the Creator wants the whole of humanity to get to spirituality, they understood they had to lose this in order to mingle with everybody else, in order to kind of like scatter among other people. So a new process started, which was called the ruin of the temples. So they built the first temple and reached the pinnacle of spirituality, and then the first temple was destroyed, so they lost that level, which was expected. And then they built a second temple, which is another spiritual degree, but a less spiritual degree, and that temple was also ruined, and they also expected that one. In fact, Akiva was laughing when they were like knocking the building down. Everybody was crying, and the Kabbalist Akiva, he was laughing about it. Why? Because he understood that this has to happen for us to build a real temple called the third temple, which is what? It is our spirituality inside. It's not a building. Okay? So he understood that now that the second one is shattered, humanity will have to build this third temple called spirituality, and humanity will come to attain the Creator. That's why he was laughing about it, because he was happy about it, while everybody else was crying about it. Why? Because they didn't have the level of understanding he did. So after that, the second temple, it was like about 2,000 years ago, religions started developing. So we have the Jewish religion. So before that, there was no religion. Okay, the Rabbanut is only after the second temple. So Judaism started developing. So this is why Kabbalah has nothing to do with religion. Okay, it's from Adam. So Judaism started, and then after about 300 years, Christianity started. Christianity. You'll have to excuse my writings. And afterwards, Islam started. And this is how we have the three Abrahamic religions starting. And then we have, let's do this. Let me be a bit more space efficient here. Okay, let's do this. So about 2,000 years ago, let's see, religion, I'll just put here religions. Okay, how's that? Okay, religion. And then what I'll note here is just make it symbolic religion. That's Judaism, and then there's Christianity, okay, and then there was Islam. Okay, so the religions developed. And then afterwards, what happened was 1,800 years ago, about, let's make this a little bit efficient as well. Okay. About 1,800 years ago, they wrote the Zohar. Okay, so Rashbi and his group of Kabbalists. So Rashbi and his group wrote the Zohar. And then they hid it away. Okay, because they wrote it actually not for that generation. They were already expecting the whole of humanity to go through a roller coaster. So what they did is they wrote the book and they said, oh, let's hide this. And they hid it, okay? And after centuries, a book, they discovered the book, it came out of hiding. How did it come out of hiding? Obviously, it doesn't have its own legs. What happened is sometimes people, like Indiana Jones, they go around, dig stuff up, and they find things, okay? So the Book of Zohar was also discovered, and a guy called Moshe de Leon discovered the Zohar, and he found it and he stored it, okay? He found the book in a market. He went and bought all the pages that he could see there, he could find there, and then he hid it away. And he started studying from that. And this is how the Zohar came about.
They said it was a boy who was wrapping fish in his papers or something.
That's right. In the market, a guy was kind of selling fish, and let's say I have a piece of paper here, you wanted to buy a piece of fish from me, and slapping the fish on there, wrapping it up and saying, there you go, have a good day and enjoy your meal. Okay, so Moshe de Leon, wanting to eat his fish, takes a look at the paper and thinks, oh my God. Okay, so, and he kind of like buys everything he can find there, all the pieces.
And we're missing still like 80% of it or something.
Absolutely, what's revealed is like 10% of the Zohar. Okay, it must have been a huge, huge writing, because think about it, those guys were writing everything from the thought of creation until what's going to happen at the end of our physical, corporeal development and getting to spirituality. So they were like writing from A to Z with all the details. So imagine the number of books that we're still missing from the Zohar. Huge. So we only have a very limited amount. And then afterwards, about 400 years after that, a guy called Ari comes along. And Ari, in the 16th century, okay, he starts writing the Tree of Life. And the Tree of Life has a very nice period to it. Why? Ari is also now writing to us at a new state in humanity. Now, that time is a time of Renaissance. Okay, so there's a huge development in Europe, in humanity overall. Renaissance is coming out, and there's art, culture, science. Humanity is entering a new phase with these developments, cultural activities, right? And after the Renaissance period, what happens is when he's in that period, actually, he is now writing in such a way that the book is detached from corporeal stories. It becomes more of a scientific approach. He starts to talk about the light, the desire, and how the light inside the desire is reflected. So he starts talking about the Sephirot. He starts talking about the soul in a structural way, that it's a desire which is taking a portion of light, which is pleasure, and that pleasure is being given by another force. So he's bringing now a new concept. Well, it's not a new concept, it's a new way fit for humanity to learn spirituality. Okay, just like we're developing education for our children all the time, what are the Kabbalists doing? The Kabbalists are saying, well, as humanity changes, we have to kind of adopt the situation according to their development. And that's what Ari did. So with the beginning of science and the era of cultural and science developing, he wrote everything in a very scientific, nice way. And he left it at that. Comes after him, many years later, Baal HaSulam. Okay, so Ari wrote the Tree of Life, and then we can now move up a little higher here. And in the 20th century, comes the great Kabbalist of the 20th century, Baal HaSulam, Yehuda Ashlag. Baal HaSulam. Now, Baal HaSulam is an exceptional guy. If you just look at his work, you can see from 100 years ago how he foresaw everything, and how he started writing about where humanity needs to be at the time that he's living in. So he wrote many articles, not just spiritual articles, but also articles describing the state of humanity, where it's heading to, and how it needs to kind of like change if it doesn't want to suffer. We're talking about a guy who saw the Second World War before it happened. So he already saw there was a Second World War coming. He started to warn people. He wrote a lot of articles and everything. However, people, as you know, like stubborn children we have, they don't listen too well. So life has to slap them around, just like we have to shake them up a little bit every now and then when they step out of line. So Baal Salam, what he decided to do was to bring all of the compositions of the Zohar and the Tree of Life by Ari together, and he wanted to prepare it for the generation of the 20th century. So anyone who was interested to study the wisdom of Kabbalah could study like a scientist, like a person who wants to discover spirituality, and for us, for our generation, like how we study and want to learn things. So he put together the book called Tas, Talmud Eser Sefirot. And he also compiled the Zohar and made it fit to read in our generation. What does that mean, made it fit to read? In the Zohar, there are a lot of things that come from the language Aramaic. In fact, Zohar was not written in Hebrew. It was written in Aramaic. So Baal Salam, what he did was he made a commentary on all the writings of Ari, Tree of Life, and called it Tas, the study of the 10 Sefirot, Talmud Eser Sefirot. And also, he did a compilation of the Zohar, and he kind of put together 25, 26 big volumes of that book, and he kind of, organized it for us, ready to study. And on top of that, he wrote many, many, many articles. So that's where we have the sources from. So we have Tas, Zohar, and his articles. And Baal Salam started teaching in the 20th century in the land of Israel. Okay, obviously then there was no Israel. It wasn't established yet, but he knew it was going to be established because he could see the future. Why could they see the future? Because just like the writers of the Zohar, just like Abraham, just like Adam, all of them could see how humanity was supposed to develop. So Baal Salam also saw how we're supposed to develop, and he wanted to speed up that process as best he can, because if you speed up your development, you don't suffer. So that's the whole idea of Kabbalists writing and trying to teach us these things, because they want to help us out and they want to develop us without suffering. So he wrote all the books, and he started teaching, while he was writing them, he started teaching people Kabbalah and how to attain the purpose of life. And after he passed away, he continued the legacy. Rabash continued his legacy. So Rabash is our continuation of Baal Salam, and Rabash is the person who wrote all our social writings. Rabash wrote articles in such a way that a group of people, he did something nobody else did. Rabash wrote articles that allowed a group of people to come together and to study correctly, and how they could build an environment. Just like, imagine Abraham, right? Just like Abraham got people into a group and organized them in order to study and develop, Rabash is telling us how he did that. What were the principles they used that nobody ever wrote about? Why? Because previously spirituality was not something that was written in books. It was taught to people. They didn't have publishing back then. They didn't have all this, software and gadgets that they could just print out and say, hey, guys, this is how you do it. They used to sit and talk about it, and they used to explain it. This is why we don't have a lot of writings from the past. Only after the invention of the press and so on, publishing and so forth, the books became available. Before that, books were like very, very rare luxury items. So if you had a book in the old days, it was like, you were flash. So this is how it happened. And Rabash wrote all his articles for a group of people who could come together to study the writings of Baal Salam, and by studying and building a connection between them, they could discover the Creator as well. So Rabash did something very, very amazing. He added on. Okay, he didn't interpret Bala Sulam because he said, you know what, this is already the stuff we need in the 20th century. There's nothing we can, there's nothing to add except bringing the work together inside a group. And that's all his writings. So Rabash came after that. And then in 1995, we have, and as you know, Rabash's student is Dr. Michael Lightman. So then we have Dr. Michael Lightman, and he established Bnei Baruch in 1995. And that's how this group was born. So a group of guys who had a dot in the heart and who wanted to study spirituality, Kabbalah, who felt an urge for this wisdom. Some people have an urge to I don't know, to study philosophy. Some want to study, I don't know, something else, whatever they like to study in life, art or whatever. And some guys like to study Kabbalah, and they have an urge. So these people who have a dot in the heart in our generation, so these dots in the heart started awakening, as Bala Sulam predicted. Okay, Bala Sulam said that my books will be started to be studied by people in 1995. Funnily enough, Bnei Baruch was opened in 1995, okay, and we started studying. And Bnei Baruch has been studying, since then with a group of people, and the group has been growing and developing and so forth. And we also, as you can see, are developing the method and the teaching to the 21st century. Okay, so to anyone who wants to come and study, we as Bnei Baruch are also teaching and developing the study in such a way that everybody can understand in the 21st century that there is a purpose to life and that we can attain it. It's not airy-fairy, it's very practical study. And this is how everything developed, and everything developed according to the purpose of life. Now, if you recall, sorry, let's just get back to my previous drawing. Here, this is how things are developing. So we, in this world, and in fact, you know what, I will draw this in a better way here. So we, now, in our world, okay, we developed through the worlds in spirituality, okay, are now in this world, and after developing all these centuries, okay, like in the previous page, so centuries of development, billions and billions of years, okay, we've now come to a state as humanity in the 21st century, and if you have a dot in the heart, okay, you can, and if you want to discover the meaning of life, and if you're really searching for why we're living, why are we created, what is this mess all for, okay, then eventually Kabbalists say a person needs to come to the study of Kabbalah so he can discover why. And as you can see, the way they explain it to us is very logical, like a historical development. It's not airy-fairy, it's not, lightnings and light out there in the sky coming down in a blinding way and showing us something off. It's a systematic development of the whole of creation. So once a person has a dot in the heart, okay, as you can see, many people are studying now. In the old days, there weren't many Kabbalists, or there weren't many people to study Kabbalah. They always had a little small group of people. That's why there are so many legends about Kabbalists as being, I don't know, magicians, or dealing with black magic and things like that. Okay, you see how crazy people are? Black magic. Have you ever seen black magic? Have you ever seen black magic?
Never seen it.
Never seen it. But people believe all kinds of fantasies. So there is no black magic. There are a group of people who are, a bit more developed than the average Joe on the street, and they want to discover the meaning of life instead of, just living and ending up dead. Okay? So what happens is also in humanity, we've had this huge development as history went by, it wasn't just for nothing, okay? What happened is our egoism also grew, and it came to the pinnacle of development. In the 21st century, our ego just grew, and it is now out of control. So while all this historical development was happening, what happened to humanity was actually we were also developing in the level of human, okay? We were developing in still, vegetative, and animate levels in life until the human in us started wakening up, which is the dot in the heart. Just like reality developed from still, vegetative, animate to human, also the human inside of us needed to go through those developments of still, vegetative, and animate. What is that? Well, still, as you know, is our core necessities, like food, family, sex, shelter. These are things that we need in order to survive, and that's called the still level. So we developed that. And then we have the vegetative level, which is our desire to grow. Okay, just like plants grow towards the sun, humanity also had a desire to grow. They wanted to become rich. They wanted to own more. They wanted to feel like we want more. Okay, so the desire for, let's say, money or wealth, actually. Okay, I'll put the dollar sign there for cash, but it's wealth. Okay. So a desire for wealth developed, for ownership, wanting to be mine. And on top of that, we had the animate desire, which is control. Okay, because once you're wealthy and your neighbor isn't, you feel like, well, wait a minute, somebody's got to keep that. So, okay, so they started wanting to have control over their lives. This is how countries developed. This is how all of a sudden people said, you know what, this is my land and you're trespassing. Okay, so this urge to control, honor and control developed inside of us. And this is how countries developed. You know, some smart guy said, you know what, this is our land now. And anybody who comes in, we're going to knock them out. So this is, you know, very primitive human development. And then the human inside of us started developing actually with science. Okay, because we started wanting to know what's going on in life. So science started developing, and at the end of that, where now science has really nowhere to go, the dot in the heart develops in humanity. Okay, and now from here, a lot of people in the world are now searching for a meaning in life. This is why we have so many religions and spiritual methods in life. Okay, if you ask Google, there's 4,200 religions in the world. Counted is officially 3,800, plus their sub-roots, okay, sub-branches, let's say, actually. Okay, so there's like 4,200, 3,800 religions, philosophies, ways of looking at life, mystical stuff that we're all engaged in simply because we want to know what's going on with my life, okay? And that is a point in the heart beginning to awaken in the masses. Now, when that point in the heart is like really shaking you up and saying, listen, I either need to know the purpose of life or I'm just going to jump from this cliff because I've had enough. And if you're searching and searching and searching, you should end up in Kabbalah. That's what the Kabbalists say. Anyway, don't look at me. So that dot in the heart develops. A person comes to Kabbalah. And that's where you end up in an education center like this and started wondering, ooh, okay, so this is science. Let's write science here. Okay. Science is also a start to spirituality because we want to know why things happen in life. When I'm talking about science, I'm not talking about inventing gadgets and stuff. I'm talking about pure science, why things happen the way they do. All right, and afterwards, Kabbalah starts to reveal for a person who's searching, right? Not for just every Tom, Dick, and Harry, for only a person who's searching. So once a person starts to search, he comes to a group of people, the group. And he starts developing. When he starts developing, he should now, with spiritual attainment, start to reveal. Obviously, it's going to take some time. The spiritual worlds, from bottom up, just like we came from top down. Here, okay, the person should start now to develop and to discover by himself, by his own work, the spiritual worlds, and attain perfection by his own, well, effort. That's the whole idea. Just like we have children, we grow them to a certain age, and then we say, listen, you got to take care of yourself now, okay? So we have to think about your career, we have to think about what you're going to do in life. It's the same thing, only spiritually, all right? So the Kabbalists are actually telling us, okay, now you have to attain the purpose of life and you have to grow up. And this is how you got to do it. So these books, these texts, and the whole of humanity's development has kind of brought us together in order to nail this job and get it done. Now then, any questions? Let's also draw a nice guy here who has developed, okay, his ego has developed and has come to despair. Okay, he's thinking, what's going on? Now then, all right, that's the situation of humanity right now. Any questions, dramas, let us know. Okay, so that's in a nutshell our development and how humanity and how Kabbalists kind of coincided and worked. You know, like in reality they existed together. They didn't work together, unfortunately. If they did, it would have been a lovely world. But humanity also had to go through a development. And the Kabbalists had to also go through and make this wisdom kind of mature for humanity. Because when a person is hungry and he doesn't have food, okay, like in many years ago, like hundreds of years ago, it wasn't so easy to get food every day. It's very hard to think about spirituality. So humanity also had to go through all these cycles of development so that they could say, well, you know, we've been through everything, so what is it for? So Kabbalists patiently prepared all the books and the writings and the texts for us. On the other hand, the Creator took humanity by the hand and, well, you know, not so in a nice way, according to how we see things, but, you know, took us through this roller coaster, this little joy ride, and brought us to the 21st century. And now we're at a crossroads. Either somebody is going to press a button, and hopefully he won't, and or, you know, we're going to get spiritual and everything's going to be just fine. So that's where we're at. Any questions?
There's a few questions. It really wasn't
about the topic.
I could say sure. Yeah. I mean, we have a couple of people that were pretty active. I'm not even sure how many people we have with us. From the looks of it, maybe 20, 25 people, I'm not sure. So we had a couple of people asking questions. And now the questions come all the way from the beginning from where you started to basically right now. So I'm not really sure where to start. We have some time.
Just start, yeah.
I'll start from what first came in and we'll probably get through them all.
Okay.
So we want to clarify, Linda from Arizona, she wants to clarify. I'm a bit confused. How does evolution equate to Adam and Eve? I've been reading the Eternal Book, I think the book that Senka translated, or was translated from Senka, which I love, but it doesn't mention evolution. Am I missing something?
Look, also the Kabbalists didn't really talk about evolution and stuff. They also didn't talk about reincarnations either. Right? There are many things they didn't tell us. And it's a good thing they didn't, because what they wanted to pass to us was, listen, you got an opportunity in life, nail it. That's what they were wanting to give as a message. And the reason they didn't talk about many things is because sometimes we tell children very little. Because if I tell the kids more than they understand, they're just going to get confused and they're just not there. They're not with me. All right. So what happens is we give them little by little. So same in spirituality. Now Adam and Eve is a spiritual concept actually, which developed here. You will actually learn this if you study with us. Adam and Eve is a concept that developed in this world here. In the spiritual worlds, Adam and Eve actually have nothing to do with our corporeal world. It's just our corporeal world is just a manifestation, like a visualization of an inner sensation. That's how it is. The whole of reality is actually exactly that. The whole of reality is my imagination of what I'm going through inside of me. So Adam and Eve is a spiritual concept of give and take. Eve is actually a stronger desire to receive that revealed in Adam. That's why in the books, in the religious books, they say Eve was from the rib of Adam. I mean, come on, get real. Nobody's going to be born out of my rib. Okay, Eve is just a new state that developed inside of me, which is called a new desire, a higher, a stronger desire to receive. That's who Eve is. And with every desire that pops up in us, we have a stronger Eve inside of us. So in this world, the Creator wants to teach us through the things we see. The Creator doesn't want us to believe in something airy-fairy like, many teachings in life, as you can imagine, like religions, right? They want you to believe that this is how it is. Well, Kabbalists say, well, that's just silly. If you haven't attained it, and if you don't know to be a fact, believing it is just silly. Okay, it's childish, right? So all these concepts of Adam and Eve and so forth are phases of development that are inside of us towards spirituality. So Adam is the first man in us, meaning it's that first point of development where I reveal the Creator, that giving force in nature. Basically, the force that activates everything behind the curtain. So imagine there's a curtain, and there's you before opening the curtain, and there's you after opening the curtain. That's two different people completely. Okay, because now you see what's behind the curtain, you have a second reality. And that's what Adam is. So Adam inside of us is the guy who discovers a new reality. So in spirituality, very, very important thing is not to connect these things to all kinds of stories and imaginations that are kind of like connected to flesh. Okay? Moses, Abraham, all these guys are actually concepts. Spiritual concepts. Although there was a man called Abraham, yes, but in reality, what we're looking at here, as you study more, you'll begin to understand that us, everybody around the world, every actually living creature, the planets and the stars and the suns, everything, are actually a mechanism of cause and consequence. It's like constantly influencing us. Okay? So we're actually dependent on the whole of reality. Okay? So all of these things are phases that we're going to be going through and experiencing. There you go. Is there anything else?
Yeah.
So don't be confused. There is you. Okay? There's the reality in front of us. There is an end result that we need to come to, which our dot in the heart is pulling us towards, and that's why we come to search. It's kind of like bringing us in. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, first I'll just go ahead and note. Andrea from Iowa says, finally, I'm starting to understand a little bit after many months, so it was confusing, and you've clarified, so she says thanks.
Okay, hey, that's good. At the end of the semester, things are looking up.
Things are coming together.
Yeah.
So I hope Susie from Florida, you had about 3 questions in a row. She was burning. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think you just now answered all of those questions. If not, try and send one in, and we'll see if we have enough time to get to it. So next in the list, well, the Harry Potter idea. Marty from Alabama, I think, is saying, so it's like Harry Potter where you can only use the power if you don't want to. We didn't really talk about using what power. I think it was in the beginning of like bestowing, and if you don't want to bestow, you can only receive it if you don't want to receive it, kind of thing. This kind of backwards.
What's the question exactly?
Is this like Harry Potter where you can only find the power if you don't want to use it?
No, okay, definitely not like Harry Potter. We actually want to discover it, okay, because it's like kids growing up, okay. They want to discover life. We should actually learn from children. There's a lot to learn from children. What do kids do? They're always running around wanting to discover things, okay. That's how we should be. Why? Because we have actually something important to discover in life, the purpose of life. Because if you look at the world, what happens is our life is not much different than an animal, a cat or a dog. Right? So if you look at dogs, for example, a dog is a classic copy of human nature, let's say, always sniffing around. Okay, we even have a proverb like that. You know, we ask us, "What are you sniffing about?" You know, because what are you looking for? What's happening? How's your day going? I see you sniffing around. What are you looking for? Okay, that's humanity. We're always sniffing around to see where we can find an extra gram of pleasure. It's a dog's life. Okay, that's what they say. So basically, what we want to do now, hopefully after we have some question about life inside of us, we should start looking at things like, well, okay, if I carry on living like this, it's going to be a dog's life where I'm going to be constantly seeking pleasures, and I'm going to be seeking pleasures until I die, because I'm not going to get fulfilled even if I get what I want. Because no matter what you get in life, if you want it, let's say, no matter what you want and get, the pleasure disappears. The pleasure will just go. Okay? Just like eating good food. Let's say you're very hungry and they put in front of you your favorite food. After your fourth, fifth bite, you see the taste is already going down. Why? Because your taste buds are used to it. And then you just eat the rest of the ice cream or your food or whatever just to finish it off. Okay? So that's the pleasures of this world. So if we want to step into the degree of man, Adam, human, then we have to start getting our hands a bit nitty-gritty. So now we have to discover what's happening in life. So we really, really want to discover, we really want to open up all this reality and see what force is acting on us so that we can integrate ourselves into it with full consciousness. So we want to discover everything, we want to find out everything, exactly how it needs to be done, so we could at least have a life, because we don't have one right now. Yeah, well, okay.
Are we done at 4:15?
4:30.
4:30.
You got 15 more minutes.
Guys, we need some more questions, please. So then this is all right. So Marty's gonna continue. Marty, he's gonna say, so how can Americans not feel like a silly little sister when studying Kabbalah? Americans, huh?
That's true for all of us. When we first come to the wisdom of Kabbalah, it's a big ocean out there. But you know what? When we start swimming, we start in the kids' pool. And this is how the education center is, right? So I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and I teach her swimming, right? But when she was 3 or 4, we started in the baby pool. Okay, so we're in the baby pool together, she's with me, getting used to the water and everything, we're all having a laugh about it and everything, okay? Sometimes get a little scary because she's swallowing water, but at the end of the day, it's all fun and games, right? So same here. Now the education center is all of us together, okay, all of us together in the baby pool. And we're going to start learning about what life is all about, and we're going to start learning how to swim in this ocean of material that the Kabbalists prepared for us. And it's going to take, step by step. See, I started taking her to the pool around, she was 3, and now she's 7, she knows how to swim now. Okay? So now she knows how to swim. We go to the pool together, but she's swimming on her own, I'm swimming on my own, but we're all in the same pool. So in that same pool, she's learning to swim faster and faster and better and perfecting her technique and everything, while I've been swimming for ages and I'm just swimming along, right? So there is a process that we all need to kind of go through in life, as with everything. So this is not a weird situation, okay? This is how it was when we came as well. And so I'd be patient. Here, patience is a very important attribute. It's a good virtue to have. It's a good virtue to have in life as well. Okay? Doesn't mean we have to sit and wait. When studying, be patient, but understand that development takes patience. All right? So don't worry. It's all good. It's how life is.
Yeah. Also, you don't need to feel silly. I don't know. I think maybe I understand where you're coming from, but there's a couple of things here. One, what Mulu said, and that when you start studying Kabbalah, it seems like, he always says, like, airy-fairy. It seems like you don't really know, and obviously, you can't really approach anyone else about it. And so no one else really needs to know, honestly. You don't need to tell anybody else what you're doing, and it's something very internal. And if someone doesn't have the same exact desire as you have, think about it as someone who has the same exact appetite for some very specific food with very specific spices, and you can't just give that recipe to someone and expect them to enjoy it the same way that you enjoy it. So that's one. Another thing is that you should start to feel a little bit, maybe not after the first semester, but at least start to feel a little bit of responsibility, and seeing how really, really that this is the most important thing in life. At first it becomes like something that you really just have a desire for and you want to know more, like when you saw the chart with the knowledge and the science at the end, and you just want to know more. But really when you start touching it and tasting it and really going through this thing on your own flesh, you start seeing the world differently in a way that you become responsible for the world. You become responsible for how the world will advance, based on your efforts, based on how you begin to develop yourself. And the faster that you develop yourself and can start bringing balance into nature, you'll start balancing the rest of the world. And that's another thing. There's nothing silly or sissy about that. It's simply becoming a parent to just basically the whole world, which is what we need to take pretty seriously. So Julio from Texas is saying, when do we develop Patzufim? Once we're in a group?
Wow, Patzufim is a very, very, very high state. A Patzuf is a situation where you can actually bestow to the Creator. And that is already like revelation of the Creator, right? So when we're talking about Creator, I also don't want you to go into any la-la land or cuckoo land where you start imagining yourself something. When we're talking about the Creator is when we understand that there is a reciprocal relationship between me and the force that acts in life towards me. This only happens when we attain a new attribute called bestowal. This happens after the development of a person in a group. That's true. So we need to get to a working environment where we start to discover how we can start looking at doing things in order to change our nature from taking into bestowing. Okay? So we're always going to be a desire to receive. That's what we are. But what we want to do is by the use of the study, okay, this is why we study Kabbalah, right? What we want to do is kind of feel and understand this second attribute in nature which we don't feel at the moment. All right? So so through the study in the group we will get there. Yeah.
And I don't remember that I don't think we spoke about Patzufim or anything like that. So, and that is kind of this not complicated, but it's more advanced topic. And you don't, I think, and something that we're really stressing now in the morning lessons is not studying for wisdom or to get smarter. You have to remind yourself every single time. Every time you open up a book, you're gonna want to just know what is there. And so sure, you need to know some of the fundamentals, some of the basics, but just try to have on the kind of the side this idea that you were reminded once and many other times after that you don't study in order to learn things. That's the goal here. Isn't just to know what parts of fame, how many angels are in the sky, and by that I feel better about myself. I feel like I'm advancing. That's actually the opposite of advancement. Advancement is more of a lack. I have more of a lack for for understanding and feeling what's happening there. Not that I feel more fulfilled now that I'm smarter, that I've learned something that, you know,
obviously,
that's in the books.
yeah. It's on the one hand, what Chris is saying is true, but obviously, look, when we're studying, it's also good to have a good knowledge base. Okay, this is why when you're starting new to Kabbalah, I recommend to read many of the books, a lot of the books that we have, to build a foundation. Okay, so because at the end of the day, the way we approach life is built upon our experience and knowledge together. Okay, so what we want to do, this is why the Kabbalists like Rabash wrote the social writings, Baal HaSulam wrote many articles which are talking about our life in this world, all right? So it's very, very important to know those as well, because it kind of stabilizes you and kind of opens up the path in such a way that you begin to understand how this study kind of works on you. And if you have that knowledge base, then you kind of know what to expect. Okay, so for example, the Kabbalists say to us, I don't know, you're going to go through ups and downs. Well, I haven't been through ups and downs yet. We've just got started, but they write about it, right? So I'm thinking already, okay, I'm going to go through ups and downs. So that's knowledge that it should already be through reading, that should already be in me. So attaining knowledge is good, okay, very good, because you know it kind of prepares you for life. This is why we go to school, by the way, okay? Okay, so it's the same mentality, nothing weird here. And on top of that, though, we also have to build a desire, okay, just like Adam and Abraham did, a desire to really discover why we're living, okay? So those two things go hand in hand, okay? So there you go. What else?
So Linda from Arizona says, Eve is the ego, Adam is the creator. Is that right?
No, guys, they're all inside of us, okay? Inside of us, Adam and Eve, don't look at it like sexes, okay? There's an Eve in me, it's my desire to receive. Okay, so we're actually, all of us are Eve. We men sometimes like to think we're macho, okay? But it's not true. All of us are a desire to receive, okay? A desire to receive. We are all of the creatures in the world are a desire to receive. And a desire to receive in spirituality is known as the female. So all of us are female. We're all women. In spirituality, that's how it is. I hope you feel better now. I really don't. Okay, I'm just kidding. Because we have to have a little bit of sense of humor when we're studying, all right? Okay, now Adam is the screen, the intention to bestow on top of the desire. Okay? This is why, where do you think the tradition of marriage comes? Okay? Because when there's a man and a woman together, they make one. So there's a desire, Eve, which is in me, and if I have a intention, a desire to bestow with that desire, that's called Adam, and there we have Adam and Eve. Hey presto. Okay, so that's Adam, and that's Eve. And in nature, okay, why do we say men are the breadwinners? Or men used to go hunt, and women used to kind of like cook it all up. Okay, where does that come from? Where's that nature come from? It's from this, Adam and Eve. Why? Because Adam is getting and giving. And Eve is receiving. So she's the house, she's receiving, and Adam goes out and gets the bread. And it brings it, it's same thing, okay? We just need to see it a little deeper than the stories we've been taught. But Adam and Eve are all inside of us, and life is actually showing us how this system is working in front of our eyes. Okay, because I can't see what's in me, so the Creator has to make a reality kind of seemingly outside of me. Okay? There you go. That's Adam, that's Eve. Who was that?
Oh, that was Linda from Arizona.
Okay, so, and the whole of that is the Creator here, okay? And the whole of that is called Linda. All right, there you go. And that's the Creator, and you have now a reciprocal relationship. There you go. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, sure. So I was just trying to look at what Doris was writing here from Ontario, and it looks like she wrote it whenever we were in the middle of something, so the context is a bit lacking. But she says, is that like everyone saying, so that I guess is something that you just mentioned, so it's going to be hard maybe to answer, but at least we can touch it. Is that like everyone saying, remember the good old days? Things were better back then. We experienced and laughed, and then we forgot how the pleasure felt because it passed.
Okay.
I think I understand what she's trying to say there.
There are two things here. Okay, corporeal pleasures, you won't remember much. Okay, only good tastes, right? If you tasted something new, let's say a new tropical fruit that you never ate before, and it tasted really good, you'll remember that. Why? Because it leaves an impression. But when you get used to things, you don't really remember them, right? The daily routine stuff. Now, the things you mentioned about remembering the connection and the pleasure from the good connection between people is a different ballgame. Why? Because that's already close to spirituality. So, for example, in the old days when you were with the family and you had a really good connection, it was all happy and wonderful, that's a good memory. Why? Because it already tells you, wow, happiness is not in the material things I get, but I really remember happiness in the good connection we used to have with people. Right? That's already a good discernment, I reckon. And spirituality is actually feeling life in the good connection between us and integrating the Creator into that. So we feel that good connection and the Creator, and we add on top of that good sensation the consciousness and why it's how working. Why and how it's working. Right. What else?
Tom from New Zealand, I feel like I may have reached the point in the heart some time ago. Is this likely possible? Oh, this reminds me, whenever you were talking one time about how, you know, if someone's really searching and they're either going to jump off the cliff or they're going to find the meaning in life, that's true. Also, though, and I've experienced just on myself whenever I want to say, you know, give someone a book or something because it looks like they're really interested, you know, like they're looking through life, they're looking maybe Buddhism or something. Everyone also goes through their own development, everyone has their own development. So from the outside, maybe you think that they are worthy of reading a Kabbalah book, and you think, oh my God, he's going to be so interested in this. He's really like searching for meaning in life and things, but he may not actually be ready for Kabbalah. That's definitely possible. That will definitely happen. So this is what is recommended generally, kind of just this tablecloth practice of just giving a book. You don't need to talk about anything, you don't need to do anything, you just give the book and you've done your part. You've passed on, you know, if you think someone's interested in Kabbalah. So it's good to have kind of this library of books that you give away. Don't expect it to give back. Whenever they're done with it, just say, give it to somebody else who you think. So kind of have it in passing. So he wants to know, is it possible that the point in the heart awoke some time ago?
Of course, we all have a point in the heart. Okay, so if you're wondering about the meaning of life, why you're living, what's the point? Okay, because we look at life and we just don't see a point. You know, what for? Why do I need to run after all these things that society is imposing on me to run after? Many of the desires that I chase, they're not even mine. I wouldn't have even thought about it had society not advertised it. Many of the things we do are just running around uselessly and mindlessly trying to fill our lives up with things that are just not even, you know, related to us in any way. So if you're really, you know, wanting to discover why we're living, what's the meaning of life, what's the purpose behind life, that's definitely already an awakening. You already sitting there in New Zealand, you know, at this hour, which is in the middle of the day, and it's a Friday there, okay, so you're like mid-morning there or towards lunchtime, already is a sign that, you know what, it's Friday, and that's, you know, instead of working, I want to get spiritual. That's already a good sign, I think. I'm also from Australia, okay? I'm Turkish, but I lived in Australia and I moved here from Australia. So we've got that big time gap. And if you're already, you know, listening to a Kabbalah lesson in the middle of a Friday, that's already a good sign.
You're already sick and tired of everything else, which that's a sign in Australia especially.
Now we're going to wrap it up. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, that's it. We have announcements and that's it.
Okay, good. Yeah, let's go.
I wanted to say from Marty from Alabama again. She says, "What data? What data do you have about the events to come?" So I wanted just to remind you, we don't have any really events specifically because some of them are local. So if you go to Kabbalah.info, you can see the banners at the top of the page, and there's a couple of them you can scroll through, and I think it'll give you the option to figure out what city you're in and if there's something taking place. Of course, we have a congress. We have monthly congresses usually, European, Russian, South American sometimes, North American sometimes, and there's always some kind of physical get-together, which if that's what you're interested in, then you can go to Kabbalah.info and you can kind of find your way through there. So apparently your final lesson, I guess, of the semester will be on Sunday, and it's ending, the semester's ending, but there's not an actual date for the second semester. But we don't have.
So you have to follow it up, guys. Okay, with the education center, with the learning center. All right, you have to follow it up on the website as well to see. They'll probably send you an email, but just keep your eyes and ears open on the website.
Oh, here it is, right here. Kabbalah.info/lecture. So that'll let you know if you have something close to you. Local could mean 2 hours away, and you're willing to drive. You know, that definitely happens a lot. Take any of your unanswered questions, which you actually don't, because I think we answered all of them, to the forum. And if you have any questions, problems of anything, send to ec@kabbalah.info. And if we have a bunch of people waiting to help you.
Great. Guys, we hope you had a good lesson. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be with you always. Have a great weekend. All the best.
Bye. Thank you.